There are roadways all over the world that are tormented by spirits and ghouls that linger on past death, frightening motorists and roaming through the night. There are so many stories that we saved some of the darkest ones for another chapter here in the series. So buckle up and watch your blind spots as we now present to you 5 more haunted highways from across the world. Considered one of the most haunted areas in Chicago, the stretch of Archer Avenue between Resurrection Cemetery and St. James at Sagbridge Catholic Church weaves its way through the forests, lakes, and multiple cemeteries. In the early days of Chicago, the road was a Native American trail through the desolate and treacherous prairie, and some have suggested that the original inhabitants forged a path here because of a mystical, magnetic force that is connected to the next world. The footpath was turned into a proper road in the 1830s. Most of the Irish workers who built the road and local canal moved out of Chicago and became parishioners of the St. James at Sagbridge Catholic Church. Legend has it that they settled into a small nearby community which was later cursed by an early pastor of the parish in retribution of the wickedness of the people there. The story has it that the curse caused the community to die out within a few short years, and no trace of it can be found today. Supernatural events have been reported around the church grounds since the middle 1800s. It was around this time when the first sightings of the phantom monks took place here. These stories have been confirmed by locals and priests of the church alike, seeing spirits roaming the cemetery. If unwanted visitors were caught trespassing out here at night, the monks would apprehend and torture them in hideous ways. In 1977, a Cook County police officer was passing the cemetery and happened to turn his spotlight up past the cemetery gates. He claimed to see 8 or 9 figures in monk-like habits, moving slowly up the hill towards the church and rectory. He pursued the figures, which seemed to glide along the ground, and once he nearly caught up with them, they vanished without a trace. Another legend that was first reported back in 1897 was that of a phantom hearse. The hearse was drawn by a team of mad black horses with no rider. According to some, the coffin that it bore was that of a child, a coffin that would glow in the dark of night. According to a report in the Chicago Tribune, 2 musicians that had been spending the night in a recreation hall located at the bottom of the hill were awoken in the early morning hours by the sound of a carriage bounding along the stones outside. They looked out and saw the hearse with no rider. They became the first to report the eerie vehicle, but they would not be the last. Possibly the darkest story of Archer Avenue, in the infamous Kaiser Hall Ballroom, it is told that the devil himself came to dance many years ago. The story recalls that a young woman became entranced one night with a handsome stranger that she met on the dance floor. After hours of dancing with the young man, the woman looked down at her partner's feet and screamed at what she saw. Other men nearby assumed the man had made an unwelcome advance on the woman and chased the stranger up to the 2nd floor. The stranger refused to fight and instead leapt out of a 2nd-story window, landing with ease on the ground below, leaving behind the imprint of cloven hooves. Riverdale Road is known as the most haunted road in Colorado, with a long history of hauntings and other paranormal activities, particularly through an 11-mile stretch that runs between Brighton and Thornton. People have seen the ghost of a woman in white and of spectral hounds. They've had visions of bodies hanging from the trees during a full moon and even encountered a haunted Camaro. Another story is that of a lone man who went for a jog along Riverdale Road one day and was suddenly struck by an oncoming vehicle. The driver never stopped to check on the jogger, who died from his injuries. To this day, the spirit of the jogger still haunts the road, making his way along several miles of highway, especially at a place known as Joggers Hill, which is rumored to be near 120th Avenue. People passing through on foot have claimed to hear the pounding rhythm of a heartbeat and the footsteps of a phantom presence running past. Other motorists have come out sharing that when driving by the area, they have felt something hitting their car when there was really nothing there. They said it sounded like someone slamming their fists into their cars out of anger. There have also been numerous fatal crashes due to the winding nature of the road and the excessive speeds drivers attempt on the roadway. Yet there does not appear to be any historical evidence of this killed jogger anywhere. Although the Thornton Police Department receives media inquiries for comments every few years regarding such stories, they deny remembering any calls for service that were worth mentioning. Along this winding highway, likely the most noteworthy story begins with a man driven to insanity. One night while in a fit of lunacy, maybe under the influence of a demonic possession, a man set his own mansion home on fire, with his family still asleep inside. He disappeared afterwards, and his body was never found amongst the rubble. The only structure left standing in ashes was the Iron Gate, a place now known as the Gates of Hell. Locals and paranormal investigators have surveyed the area, finding other old buildings near the Gates of Hell which are connected by interlocking underground tunnels. These structures had demonic-looking graffiti, and people even discovered headless animals lying on the concrete pylons in the center of the buildings. Since the malicious fire, travelers have reported experiencing lost souls roaming across the road as if looking for their next victim. Since 1910, drivers and cyclists have reported suffering unusual accidents along the B3212 road across eastern Dartmoor between Post Bridge and Two Bridges. In many cases, the victims reported that their vehicle had jolted or swerved violently and steered off the side of the road as if something had taken hold of the wheels and wrenched it out of their control. In most instances, the victims ran into a verge and survived. Their experiences remained a little more than a local curiosity until June 1921, when the medical officer for Dartmoor Prison was killed when he lost control of his motorcycle. His two young girls, who had been riding in the sidecar, survived. Several weeks later, there was another incident where a coach driver lost control, injuring several passengers who were thrown out of their seats. Then, in August of 1921, an army captain reported that a pair of invisible hands had taken hold of him and forced his motorcycle off the road. He stated that he felt two large, muscular, hairy hands close over his own and force him into the side of the road in spite of his resistance. After the incident, his story was picked up by newspapers in London, and the story became known nationwide. While some travelers have said that they suddenly and inexplicably have lost control of their car, others have said that the steering wheel became locked. Stranger still are those reports of drivers who look down to see a pair of hairy, dismembered hands hanging onto the wheel. There is also the belief that the hands are demonic and that they will climb up the sides of parked cars and claw at the windows. According to local skeptics, most of the accidents were caused by people who were unfamiliar with the area driving too fast down narrow country roads with high walled sides, resulting in them either losing control or misjudging the road and running off its edges. However, stories and reports continue to come in where people insist that a strange force had taken control of their vehicles, attempting to veer them off the road and leaving them with a sense of dread. The N22 at Curraglass near Killarney in Ireland passes through an extensive area of standing stones, stone circles, and ancient monuments on the foothills of the Paps towards the Cork Kerry border. In 2005, the new road suddenly developed a noticeable dip, several meters long, and repairs were carried out by Kerry County Council. These included excavation of the road as well as the introduction of rock fill material in an operation lasting some weeks. However, the dip continues to reappear, baffling city council engineers and leading to publicly voiced suspicions by one councillor that the fairies are at work. An outspoken member of Ireland's parliament claims that the mysterious dip in the N22 road relates to the presence of fairy forts. When the dip first reappeared, the Council Road Authority said the dip was due to deeper underlying subsoil geotechnical problems. Mounting issues with the road have led to politicians calling for funding to repair it for the fourth time since it was opened in the 1980s. However, in recent years, the councillor has become very adamant in his beliefs, gaining media attention and the support of many local residents. In traditional Irish folklore, disturbing places associated with fairies is thought to bring bad luck or a fairy curse. Such places include so-called fairy forts, also known as raths or leos, which are the remains of ancient structures. It's believed that anyone who has tampered with them over the years paid a high price and had bad luck. The dip continues to reappear despite repair efforts by the council costing well over 40,000 euros. When a new section of Route 55 was commissioned to be built near Deptford, New Jersey in 1983, dire warnings were issued by the chief and medicine man of the Delaware Indians. They cautioned that the area was sacred land and an ancient burial ground. Archaeologists did find evidence of a settlement in that area, which included pottery, stone artifacts, and bones. While efforts were made to reroute the road, it was ultimately built through these sacred lands. Soon after the construction began, there were several bizarre tragedies and strange injuries that began to take place. While on the job site, one construction worker's feet turned black as if severely frostbitten. One worker was run over and killed by his own asphalt rolling vehicle, and another was severely injured when he was blown off an overpass by a gust of wind that came out of nowhere. A vehicle transporting DOT employees mysteriously caught fire and exploded. Family members of the workers who hadn't even been to the construction site inexplicably began getting sick and dying. Today, it is a highway filled with memorials to car crash victims and reports of unusual occurrences. Drivers share stories of seeing apparitions every so often on the side of the highway. There are incidences of freak accidents where drivers make erratic decisions without explanation. It's also eerily common on one 3-mile stretch of Route 55 to have breakdowns and other random car troubles. Many local residents believe that if the road construction had been positioned just a few miles away, these mysterious deaths may never have occurred. The chief said in an interview, "The damage is done. The problem is, I feel sorry for some of the people who will be traveling that road in the future."
For more videos about the paranormal and the unexplained, please like and subscribe to the Oddities Observed channel.